Morning, everyone. So, a number of years ago, I used to work at a coffee shop, and as a part of this coffee shop, my responsibilities were to order things. And one day, I went to go order some coffee filters, which was pretty regular occurrence, and the company that we got the coffee filters from said they couldn't give us the coffee filters because the manufacturer was out of stock. And if you know anything about Seattleites, they really take their coffee seriously. So telling people that we couldn't make this particular coffee this particular way really upset a lot of people. And so one of the customers that came in was a regular, and he said to me, when I explained the situation, he just laughed. And I said, "Why are you laughing?" And he said, "Well, what kind of coffee are you guys serving?" And I said, "Oh, we're serving coffee from Guatemala because we're a bougie Seattle coffee shop." And he said, "It's the middle of winter. Guatemala doesn't make coffee in the middle of winter. So when you call up your coffee supplier and you say, 'Hey, can we get some Guatemalan coffee?' They don't say, 'No, sorry, Guatemala's out of coffee.'" And I had a chance to talk to the coffee supplier that actually supplied the coffee for the roastery where we got it. And I asked them, how do you guys keep coffee in stock? And they said, well, a lot of us studied economics in college, and we do a lot of demand prediction. And this really stuck with me as like the first time that I really saw data becoming prevalent in day-to-day businesses. And so I really like this story because it was really applicable to me in my daily life. And as I've gone through my career, we've started to see data as being an anchor for successful businesses over and over and over again. So my name's Pierce. I'm a product manager for Tableau, and for the last 18 months, I've been working on Google and Tableau and how we can better support our customers who are deploying Tableau on Google Cloud Platform. And this is my coworker, Peter. Peter?
And my name is Peter Johnson. I'm the short haircut guy to the left there, and I'm a sales consultant based in the Nordics, Stockholm, Sweden. And really happy when I got the opportunity here to co-present this session here together with Pierce and this wonderful bright lights big city of Las Vegas. And some of you may not know that, but Pierce live and work in Seattle, of course, with all that great coffee, but he's actually originally from the beautiful islands of Hawaii. And we were thinking, wouldn't it have been great to do the presentation maybe in Hawaii or something? Because I'm really sure that all of you would not want to be where I'm from right now, because this is what it looks like back home before I left, and probably when I'm going to return as well. So yeah, we're really glad to be here. And just a couple of things here. We have some more Google related session here going on. We had one yesterday it's not us presenting it, but in the topic around Google Analytics and how to leverage Google Analytics with Tableau. And if you missed it, you're interested, see if it's going to be recorded and available. And what we have a little bit later here today, this afternoon, is a deep dive pretty much in the machine learning functionality out of the big queries, where we're going to touch a little bit on as well. And at the same time as today, tomorrow, we're having the next generation analytics with Google Cloud Platform. So a little bit of plug for those sessions that's going to be going on tomorrow.
Thanks, Peter. So before we dive into some of the nitty-gritty things, I want to just talk a little bit about why we're all here today. So can I just get a quick show of hands? I think we're a small enough room that we can do this. How many people are currently using Google Cloud Platform with Tableau? Okay, great.
I told you.
Yeah. And how many people here are server admins of some sort?
Okay. I didn't see that one, though.
All right, great. This is a good gut check, make sure we're talking to the right group of people, because otherwise we would have had to switch the crowds out. So you guys are probably here because your business is complex and unique. And what this means is that if you're not doing something totally new, that you're probably trying to do existing thing or solve known problems in a new and unique way to give yourself some sort of competitive edge, or just run more efficiently. And like many of our customers, you're trying to use data to solve your business problems. And this really ties back to whether it's because you have some intuition about what's going to be really effective, or because you have data that shows that if you use data, it's going to help your business. But you're trying to use data to solve your business problems. So the question that we're going to talk about in relationship to Google is, how can you use your data in order to help you solve your business problems? So we're going to kind of start from the end and just kind of prime you guys. Everybody looks at this, and generally what they see is a dashboard. But this isn't just a dashboard. This dashboard was created by an end user in your organization, maybe somebody who's using Tableau, and it's a byproduct of a whole lot of hard work that as server admins you guys had to put into in order to curate an environment where they could come in and answer questions of their data. So for our talk today, Peter and I went out and we grabbed some data that Walmart had supplied for a Kaggle competition, and we threw it in a GCP, and we started our narrative there. And our narrative really is going to be taking place around the concept of supplying coffee filters and just predicting demand for inventory. So this is kind of what we're going to build up, and we're going to talk about the things that go into creating a successful environment where users in your organization can leverage the data that you have in GCP. So over the years, Peter and I have gotten a chance to interact with a ton of different companies, and Tableau in general really helps us to understand how companies can be successful using data. So generally, we find that there are three things that companies who are really successful with their data, specifically both on GCP and on other platforms, they do in order to be successful. The first thing is they give their employees the right tools. One of my favorite sayings is that if all you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. And if you give your employees the wrong tools, then they're going to run into problems. So using the right tools for the job is really important. And companies that are really successful using data and getting data out of GCP use the right tools. They also have good data hygiene, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that entails and how Tableau and Google work together to have good data hygiene. And the third component, which is often overlooked, is they create a culture of empowerment within their employees. So we took our data so I downloaded a bunch of data and I threw it up into GCP, and then my question was, okay, how do I do something useful with this data trying to get it out of GCP? And one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, what's the best way to get my data out of GCP? And in order to kind of explain, there's a lot of different ways that you can get your data out of GCP. We have extracts, we have live connections, and there's different performance levels on each of them. And so I wanted to just kind of break down for you guys the fact that our GCP connector, our BigQuery connector, is built off of a REST API that Google uses, and this REST API has the best performance when you use a live connection to BigQuery and you have, or you're performing small extracts. And it's really interesting, this small extracts has some idiosyncrasies with it that I'm going to talk about in a second, but this is really where you get best performance. Now, not everybody can connect to BigQuery using live queries, and they have needs in order to extract large amounts of data. And so if people are extracting, if you have to extract a large amount of data, we really recommend that you use our ODBC connection or and an external driver. And the reason why this is really important is because there is a separate API that an external driver can facilitate for you, which is specifically made to dump large amounts of data out of GCP. The reason we don't implement this natively has to do with the fact that we believe that there should be a consolidation of data, which you'll see us talk about over the course of this conversation. So in general, we really want you to have your data living in one place, and we don't think you should be duplicating it and have to pay for the extra storage or go through the hassle of making sure that there's two accurate and up-to-date data sources. So we really have built for live queries. Now, so coming back to the small extracts, some people have commented that while working with Google BigQuery and Tableau, that there's some baseline amount of latency. And this really has to do with the way that Google BigQuery works. So I want to just kind of break it down for you guys. So Tableau and Google BigQuery interact together. And Google BigQuery gets a request, and what it does is it determines how many resources it's going to spin up in order to process that request. So once you determine how many resources you're going to process or you need to spin up, then it spins up those resources and then executes the query. And as a result, you add in an additional step that a traditional SQL database or raw storage database, like a traditional SQL database or in-memory database doesn't have. And this works really well for large amounts of data where a normal SQL database wouldn't have enough compute power in order to just process that right out of the gate. But for smaller queries, it ends up being not as performant. So what people have started to do is they've started to take their frequently accessed data in small portions, stuff that they want really fast interactivity with, and they've start taking it out of Google BigQuery. However, Google BigQuery is addressing this, and they're providing a new solution, which we think is going to work even better, so that you don't have to duplicate your data even for small extracts. So Google BigQuery is releasing this thing called BI Engine. And BI Engine is basically an in-memory database where you can define particular tables in Google BigQuery that you want to have stored in memory. And then BI Engine will automatically, when you query Google BigQuery, you will automatically pull from the in-memory storage so that it doesn't have to determine how many compute resources to pull up. So yeah, it basically serves as a booster for Google BigQuery. And like I said, it's an in-memory database, and it really works well with Tableau. So if you're pulling data out of Google BigQuery for performance reasons, and it's a small amount of data, we really recommend using BI Engine in order to supplement this. So when we talk about the right tools for the job, the first tool that we think is really effective is how do you get your data out of Google BigQuery effectively? And this is going to set you up in the right context for the rest of everything you're doing. Because if your interactivity between Google BigQuery and Tableau is really slow, then everything else is going to be really cumbersome and hard. And so companies that are doing really well with Google BigQuery are not trying to dump large amounts of data out of Google BigQuery and have two sources of truth. And they're really trying to leverage our live queries, and they're really trying to take advantage of the new technologies that Google is releasing in order to facilitate this. So the second pillar is good data hygiene. And good data hygiene is really about making sure that your data is clean and the prep process that goes into supporting your customers. So there's two components of good data hygiene that we've really noticed that companies who have really successful programs are utilizing. They're utilizing good centralization techniques, and they're utilizing good curation techniques. So centralization is really about making sure that we have a single source of truth, that when you go to a place, you can find all of the data that you're looking for, and that it's been cleaned and scrubbed. And this is a really hard thing to do well, and the BI teams at successful companies are generally focused not on creating dashboards and reports, but they're focused more on this centralization and the curation aspect. Now, the curation aspect is just as important as centralization, because we've all gone to a dashboard and had that dashboard be just a giant question mark of whether or not it's even useful. Is this data up to date? You heard, if you guys were at the keynote, you heard us talking about some of the tools that we have, and this being a common problem. So curation, from our perspective, is really about leveraging good metadata and using some of the tools from Tableau and externally in order to have a lot of information about what's going on with your dashboard, what's going on with your data, is this data source certified, and if you do this effectively, then you will this is what we call having good data hygiene. And Peter, do you want to talk about some of the tools that Tableau has that we can use to accomplish these things?
That fixes this up, yeah. We're talking about the data flows, and the data that we used when we built this situation that we're going to talk about here about the inventory management and so forth from the Walmart area was First of all, not all of it was in great shape. We had to do some cleansing of it. There were some duplicates, believe it or not, that we had to look into. And so with that in mind, we needed to do a little bit of prepping. And data prep is challenging. And, well, I want to correct that statement a little bit, saying data preparation can be challenging every now and then, sometimes when not having the right tools or when the data is in formats that is difficult to work with. How many in here have already been using Tableau prep builder and things like that? A few. I actually was expecting not that many hands up, so that's really good, because I want you to take this into consideration and look into this a little bit. Because what this does, the Tableau prep solution, first of all, it's a very good solution in the sense that you get a very good understanding what's going on and what you can do with the data, and you're keeping it confidently in the area of what you're looking at while working with it. It also has a lot of really smart features. We've seen some additions now on the keynotes here, both yesterday and today, what it can be doing. And to be honest, I mean, Tableau Prep was probably the area where we added some ML, some machine learning AI functionality first, before we even had it in server or Tableau desktop. And some of those cleansing functionality when it gives you recommendations of steps that could be done to facilitate the preparation stages. It's also very much integrated directly in the analytical flow. So working with it is simple. You can see what you're doing and how it will affect and how it could affect other parts of the data you're working with. This gives you a really nice interface, a complete picture of the data, of what's going on, and the immediate results of what you're actually doing and changing. In this case, I have a screenshot here of the data that Piers provided me with from the Google BigQuery here, and seeing some of the things that we needed to add here to make that data work. The smartness of it as well, as we're looking at it before I make any changes, I can highlight and I can click, and when you see this little, I like to call it baby blue or lighter blue coloring to it, I can see other fields that are affected with that. Here we can actually clearly see that I selected the state of Idaho, and everything that is connected to that is also lit up in blue. So I can see some of these Boise and other store locations, and this is particularly useful when looking at, for example, some null values and seeing shouldn't you get rid of that, or because it actually affects a lot of other situations of the data, and I would not recommend all the time to do that, but it's a good way to look at what's going on before making changes, before bringing it into desktop or any analytical tools to see what could and should happen. It also gives you a very good way of staying in the flow when connecting to it, making the joins, the connections of different files that we needed to do, and also when presenting it to the bigger audience. So if most of you are server admins and maybe working with data and producing analytical insights to users, this would be in a web format, right? This data would be presented on the server so the other people can make use of it and make good analytical insights to it. So what we did there was when we had the Google BQ data in the database, as Piers mentioned, from the Kaggle network, he asked me, is this what we can do to build that dashboard we were talking about? And we're looking at it and it's like, yeah, it is. I mean, most of the information is there, because what we really wanted to do, that we're going to see a little bit later, is that we wanted to see if we can see how weather was affecting sales in some of the states of the west coast of the US, right? And that's what we had, absolutely. But what we didn't have was, we didn't have store IDs, store numbers. We didn't have any item, we had item ID, but no descriptions.
Yeah, so basically, I pulled this data down, I threw it into Google BigQuery, I tried to take a look at it after connecting to it, and I said, Peter, I need some help. Can you clean this data up for me? Which is a common thing that we expect users go through on a daily basis. So I asked Peter, hey, can you clean up this data? So he sent it through Tableau Prep and pulled in a bunch of conjunctions or auxiliary data in order to help
dressed it up.
There
was not a whole lot of fix or cleansing that we needed to do. There were some duplicates that we needed to fix up, but other than that, we just need a little bit more data to it. And looking at it, when we had dressed it up a little bit with some of those information that we lacked in the beginning, we can see how would this look like to the users if we would present it like, how would this look? Can we build what we expect to build using this scenario? And then we made a publish to using the Tableau Prep Conductor solution, and make sure sure that Piers and the other team could like confidently build the analytics and the insights and workbooks that we needed from this data.
So I pulled the data down. We had it in BigQuery. Now, we're uploading multiple versions. There's multiple workbooks that we're working on, and we're having trouble really figuring out, okay, is this our current version? What's using the correct data source? What's not using the correct data source?
Are you talking about trust now in the data?
I'm talking about trust.
Trust and governance? Absolutely. That's when the Lineage and Catalog comes in again. Like, we had so many versions of this going on just between the two of us, of this little data set that we were working, that we realized quite quickly, we're producing lots and lots of data right now. We're producing more workbooks, we're producing more versions of this data flow and everything. So, hey, we need to make sure that we keep an eye on what's going on here so we can trust what's going on and using the latest versions of it all. And that's when we started using a little bit of the catalog functionality. That was actually released, I think, just last release of...
2019-3.
19.3, that's right. Yeah. So what that does for somebody like us, first of all, it gives us the great visibility of seeing from this data source. If I would click on it, as I have up here on the right-hand side, I can see if I can use the little thing, to see from this data source, what's depending on this one? What workbooks have been built, what tables are being used, what owners work on this data set, and what sheets and so forth have been produced working with this. And if I would make any changes to these, I mean, there are not that many tables that we saw as we saw on the keynotes yesterday, but still, we needed this to make sure we were on the right track and made the right changes to the data we were working with, at least. This is the managerial, or I'll say, the server admin type of view. But if we flip that around and look at it from a user perspective, you can see, like, is Tableau Catalog and Lineage even important to users? Isn't that something for us server and data admins and so forth? Absolutely not. Because then again, what I'm doing, if I click on this little button called Data Details up here, we're getting this whole pane here for the users when using a dashboard to see, can I even trust this information, this data that they've been pulling up for me? First of all, we can see exactly what data set this has been built on, what data source is being used, who's the author, this Peter Johnson guy. I can connect with him and see if he knows what he's doing. And all of these items that we've been using in here in the data, in the dashboard, are listed right here. And I can drill into each one of them to see how the measures were created and how the different fields and dimensions were pulled out and from what tables and so forth. It's all about trust. And I usually say to my customers when discussing this, why being data-driven if your users can't really trust the data you're providing them with? And this is the best tool for that. One click and they can see it all. If they don't want to look at the traceability and lineage of the data, that's fine, they don't have to. But it's all there, and I think that's a good thing there. And I'm clicking on that. On the other side also as well, that you can use the catalog function as a discovery tool when searching for data sources of all the data sources that may or may not be available on your server. This little interface right up here where I can, in the Google window, search for example, snowfall. Is there any data source or any data or even items from data sources that includes the word snowfall? And in this case, we actually had 4 different data sources that included snowfall, because that's another thing that we needed for our dashboard to see how snowfall, rainfall, and precipitation and so forth affected the data.
So, Peter, you start talking about our data catalog, but if you're familiar with the GCP ecosystem, I can tell you that Google also has their own data catalog. And we've spent all this time saying, don't send, or you have to have a single source of truth. So what are we going to do about this multiple data catalog situation? That's
true. Google actually also, quite soon actually, launching their own data catalog functionality within the GCP. It's still in beta though, but it's right there. And have some of you tested it or seen it? Since so many of you are, a couple of brave guys over there have seen it. That's really good because, of course, this is important. The data trust and data traceability is really important. And we don't want our users or our customers to be stuck in a situation with, I'm collecting all the metadata and content information of the Tableau pieces out of our catalog, and then we're doing another catalog for the data that comes out of Google BigQuery and so forth. Enter another really, really good function that will fix this up and make this work very, very good here soon up, and that's webhooks, actually. The webhooks technology is actually the glue that will allow the users of the catalog functional to feed that data into the Google Cloud's data catalog, so we'll have all the information in one big old place and be able to search through all the items from the data, from the regions of the data, all the way down through the different dimensions and measures and information down to each and every dashboard and workbook.
Show of hands, how many people here are familiar with the concept of webhooks? And how many people have heard about Tableau's webhooks?
Here's the guy that actually spent a lot of time working on this particular solution.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do pretty consistently is we reach out to Google and we work with them about joint solutions, because we understand that, and Google understands that we don't exist in a vacuum. Your Tableau deployment is deployed in an ecosystem of whole things. So I actually am pretty familiar with the product manager for the data catalog, and we're working together in order to come up with a prescriptive solution so that you can join these data catalogs together. And we have a fun, cute little story about pulling data out of Google Cloud, or pulling data off the internet and storing it in GCP. But for an organization, this problem is expanded. And so, it's one of the things I'm a little disappointed in is that we can't convey to you the magnitude of these problems that these tools help you solve. And these tools are very, very useful, and it takes a lot of discipline to say, I'm going to go through the trouble of making sure that I understand what my data is about, that it's certified, and that I have a single source of information where I can go and find these things. So Google and Tableau are working together in order to effectively provide this. And if you're interested in joining the data catalogs, I would be on the lookout for some new products that we're going to be releasing over the next year in order to really make this a seamless transition, utilizing our new webhooks functionality. So webhooks is coming out in 2019-4, I believe, and the Google Data Catalog already exists. Some of you are already using it. Tableau's catalog already exists. You can go out and you can start using these technologies in order to synchronize your data catalogs today. But in the future, we're just going to be providing some guidelines about how to do those things.
Good. That sounds easy. We're ready to go.
Easier said than done.
Easy said, but it's going to be there. So what we built with this dashboard is we were looking at store sales per item over a period of time, actually. I don't know, was it a year worth of data?
This is a couple of years.
A couple of years worth of data. And some KPIs, how the different snowfall and rain and so forth affected affected sales. And as we can see up here on the right, we can see that the sweet canned corn is like the top sales performer when I'm clicking on the Las Vegas store right there in this specific point in time. If I would use the slider filters over here and increase the wind or decrease the snowfall, things like that, it may not be the top performing sales item for that region in that specific time. So that's a good piece of information. But it's historic information. All of this is based on what happened in the past. A couple of years worth of data will tell us how different weather changes will affect sales historically. But what a lot of people in retail industry really want to find out, but using this information, tell me instead what will happen. Tell me what predict the sales if this or that will change, or if the wind or the rain will increase in specific areas will change. That's the key question these days. So we're producing this with all the historic data, and that's, to be quite honest, that's not that difficult. We're all doing it. We've done it for quite some time. But then enters another really interesting bit. Can we use this historical information and leverage some of the machine learning functionality in the Google stack to produce some interesting features? And that's where we're going with the next.
So just curious, how many people here are currently using Google BigQuery's machine learning capabilities? Wow, love to see that. I am really long on citizen data science, and I really believe, fun story, I judge science fairs for the Washington State, and every year we see more and more people using data science and machine learning in their science fair projects. That means this is no longer a college thing. There are kids coming out of high school who can effectively use this, which is why I am long on citizen data scientists, and with just some general understanding of advanced statistical techniques and a simple user interface, you can start to leverage the employees in your business that have these basic tools and be able to expand their capabilities greatly. So to kind of showcase this, I don't even know what's on the slide. Oh yeah, so the reason why this is really important is because machine learning allows you to look forward and not just back. And so using this, we can make predictions about the resources that we're trying to supply. So in this case, if my coffee filter supplier when I was in college had used all these tools, then maybe I wouldn't have had to tell people we were out of the coffee filters for 3 weeks. And this is just like an example. You have your own business problems that machine learning can really help you. But the real critical part is if you have to sit down and explain to someone, these are the features that you're going to use, these are the things that you're going to have to do, this is the math, go read this book, you're never going to be able to effectively leverage machine learning at scale in your organization. One of the reasons why I love BigQuery machine learning is because it has a simple user interface. So I went into Google BigQuery and I created a simple 10-line query and said, hey, create me a linear regression algorithm using these variables and produce some output. And as a result, it created what's I like to call a fake table that is a representation of the model that I can now query against and Tableau can query against. And by querying against it, we're able to make predictions about the future. So, and one of the little niche items you'll notice here is that I cast item number as a string, and that's because if you try and treat item number as a numeric value, then the algorithm will try to it'll try to correlate the increase in item number with the increase in sales, which is not what you want at all. So you want string values. And I just say this because it highlights just the basic understanding that you have to have about programming. It's not really technical, but it's a blend of super technical and easy. We're making steps to make machine learning more accessible, but you still have to have the right information. And I think you'd be surprised how many people in your organization have the right information in order to start leveraging these tools. So you come into Google BigQuery, you make an algorithm, you come into Tableau, you write a custom SQL query, again, just a few lines, and as a result, I'm able to start looking at the correlations between and predict sales for every different temperature and weather. And this becomes really powerful when, say, you don't have any information on an existing place. Let's say you're establishing a new store in an area that you're unfamiliar with. You could go back and look at averages from past stores, but by combining BigQuery machine learning and Tableau together, you can make predictions in a more cohesive manner and then give a visual interface here. So what I've done here is I just have jackets and umbrellas, which came out of the data set. I don't know about the sweet canned corn stuff, but jackets and umbrellas, I believe these correlations. And what we see is that as the rain increases, the sales of jackets and umbrellas also increase. But what's really fascinating that I guess made sense was that as we see wind speed increase, the sales of umbrellas is negatively correlated. So in 15-mile-an-hour winds, people aren't going out and buying a lot of umbrellas. And this tends to make sense for us.
I don't think they're buying that many umbrellas in Sweden right now, though. That's what
yeah. So really, we're showcasing these tools because companies that use these tools tend to have better data organization practices. And their employees are able to go to Tableau and they're able to get the things out of Tableau that they need. And the real critical part of this is the empowered employee. You're not trying to solve the problems for your employee. You're trying to provide an environment where your employees and your coworkers can solve these problems themselves. So, you know, it's really easy to stand up here and say, oh, use these tools, they're really great, blah, blah, blah. But these tools are really important for solving those complex problems. And the difference between I came to Tableau and I found, you know, a Wild West, I don't know what this dashboard is about, and coming to Tableau and finding something that is reliable, that has useful business information, is really about the backlog of work that went into creating the dashboard. And so it's performant, you're using the right queries, it's trusted, it's governed, it's centralized, you have access to all the data in a single place. And by doing this, you can really get more out of your data. And the focus here is really about the employee. And creating a data-driven culture is really hard. We see this in the top organizations that we work with. I've worked a lot with Walmart, who uses Google Cloud and Tableau together. I worked with Home Depot. I work with a number of marquee customers. And I'm always floored because I have worked at a lot of companies that don't care about data. And I'm always floored when I walk in there because they say, you know, oh, yeah, an employee created this algorithm in order to predict the degradation of physical materials in our warehouses. And I'm like, whoa, who came up with that? Not some executive, it was the employee themselves. And that never is going to happen if the employees don't feel like there's a culture of self-service problem solving. And that requires trust. You have to trust them and they have to trust you. You can have the best data pipeline in the world, and if your employees don't care about it, if you don't have a culture of trust at your organization and self-service problem solving, nobody's gonna leverage these tools that you just spent all this hard work building. So you have to have both these components. You have to have tools and you have to have trust. And we're working together in order to make it easy for you guys to go out and solve these problems. We want everybody to be able to solve these problems themselves. So we're trying to give you more tools around data access, data interaction, and data interpretation. So these are the 3 pillars of our talk. And we'd like to open it up for a Q&A.
We do have some time, yeah, for some Q&A, and